getting ready for the 2025 harvest.
I'm here at Benovia Winery with Mike Sullivan. Mike is a co-owner as well as winemaker. Mike, how are you?
Doing great, Ray.
It's good to see you again. As we talked about before the interview, last time I saw you was at the barrel auction, but the last time we did an interview, I believe it was 2021.
Yes.
During COVID. And this is the first time we've been able to do a full sit-down.
There we go. Well, welcome to Sonoma County again.
Thanks for taking the time today. I'm sure you got plenty going on. Today is Wednesday. I imagine you guys are fairly booked with keeping busy?
Yeah, it's an exciting time of year. I would say that, the shoots are now about a foot in length, and we're doing a lot of cultivation and mowing and beginning shoot positioning and getting ready for the 2025 harvest.
I was really surprised, taken by the growth out here. I didn't expect to see that at this point. I mean, Again, this is, the 30th of April, I believe? Right?
Yeah.
29th?
We had a lot of rainfall this winter and early spring, which usually means that the soils stay wet and it pushes bud breakback. But it's been relatively, mild and warm, and the vines are very happy. Sometimes this time of year they get started and then they stop, but this year they're just moving right through.
When you see this growth come up, the amazement of this coming back every year, it really does blow your mind.
Yeah, spring is a wonderful time in Sonoma County. Of course, all of our rainfall happens in the winter and early spring, and then through summer it's dry. And this time of year it's green and lush, and the trees are happy, and the birds are out singing. It's glorious.
Let's talk about the wines before we go too far. About how many cases are you making?
We make about 5,000 cases a year.
Nice.
This is our 20th year in business. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary with a few things coming up.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And we own and farm 70 acres on 3 sites in Sonoma County, different points of the compass. The winery is located right in the heart of the Russian River Valley in a neighborhood that we call the Santa Rosa Plains. Sort of a broad geographic area with undulating hills, right in the heart of the AVA. We have a property, our Cone Vineyard, our oldest vineyard site that was planted in 1970 along West Side Road, which is sort of a storied neighborhood called the Middle Reach of the Russian River Valley. And then we have a new property, 12 years old, out in Freestone, which is along the Bodega Headlands, so west of Sebastopol. In a really cool area. It's right on the edge of Russian River and Sonoma Coast. It actually sits in both AVAs. Each vineyard has different topography, different elevation, different soils, and different climate. And because of that, we make very distinctive wines from each of those estate properties.
Is everything you do estate?
No, we work with a few growers locally, like the Martinelli family, and a couple sites that they have in Russian River and up in Fort Ross Seaview. And but we make the majority of our wines from our estate vineyards.
So, from my listener's point of view, why so many Pinots? What's that?
That's a great question. Our 3 estate vineyards, as we talked about, are very diverse and distinct in terms of topography, climate, soil, and the wines are incredibly distinctive as well. We make a single vineyard Pinot Noir from 2 of the Martinelli properties, very small production from Laguna Ridge part of Russian River and from Fort Ross Seaview. Again, very diverse, very distinctive, and the wines themselves are, not shades of gray, but actually different, colors in terms of the spectrum of Pinot Noir flavors. And then we make a Russian River Valley Pinot Noir. So we it varies from year to year. Sometimes we'll make 5 or 6 different Pinot Noirs. And we try and make sure that they are incredibly distinctive. We really want the experience of the customer and our passionate, wine club members to follow the thread and continuity and character of each single vineyard site from vintage to vintage. And they have their favorites because they are distinct. I think the reason that we make so many different Pinot Noirs is that it is so adaptable and diverse, and it produces such distinctive wines from different properties that it's really, it sort of calls to us to make these different wines.
Now, you make a Cabernet Sauvignon. You also make a Chardonnay.
We do. So we do make two single vineyard Chardonnays from 2 of our estate vineyards. The Marta Ella Vineyard Chardonnay, which in the Santa Rosa Plains, it's sort of, I describe it as being the Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold climate. And it produces a very distinctive Chardonnay with lots of melon, sort of white peach, lushness and texture that's lovely. And then our Tilton Hill property, which is out in the Bodega Headlands area, we produce a Chardonnay and a Pinot Noir from that site as single vineyard wines. And the Chardonnay is bright. It's really bracing acidity, lots of citrus aromas and flavors, almost lime peel and citrus blossom. And it's just a lovely, highly textured Chardonnay with a lot of acid. So Marta Ella is named after Joe Anderson and Mary DeWayne's mothers, Martha and Eleanor. And the winery is named after their fathers, Ben and Novian. So that family, the sense of family is very important to us.
And as for the Cabernet Sauvignon?
Yeah, a few years ago, our customers, this is our 20th anniversary, and back in 2017, 2016, we had some of our customers were interested, they're Cabernet lovers, and they had coaxed us to make a Cabernet. So we looked to an area that's really unique up above Lake Sonoma and the Cooley Ranch that's owned by Bob Cooley and his family for the last 100+ years, but has a parcel on it that was leased by the Klein family of Rodney Strong. They developed about 170 acres up there on shale, high elevation, really interesting area just north and west of Rockpile, AVA.
Sure.
Yeah. So we produce a single vineyard Cabernet from that site, and it's incredibly distinctive, incredibly unique. And we went over to Napa a couple of years as we were, especially in the first 2018 was our first Cabernet vintage. And we were looking to see if we wanted to do the Napa thing or the Sonoma thing. So we played with it a couple of years. We stuck with the Sonoma site. As someone that was born and raised here in Sonoma County, I'm a passionate advocate for Sonoma County and our wines.
Sonoma is a huge county and a lot of different growing areas and a number of AVAs, which makes it really, really, and a couple of new ones, if I'm not mistaken.
There's Pine Mountain. There's West Sonoma Coast AVA, which is a relative new one.
Right.
There's always exciting areas. The topography and difference in climate and soil in Sonoma County is really unique in California. You can plant grapes all the way out near the ocean, where it's very, very cool, relatively on the edge of ripeness. High risk, high reward site like Fort Ross Seaview, or all the way over to Knights Valley or Alexander Valley, where it's significantly warmer and you can get Cabernet ripe in those areas every year.
As you get closer to the coast, is it a very low yield situation because of that, or?
Yeah, as you push your vineyards closer to the ocean, you generally have to go higher in elevation too. If you were to plant grapes at the ocean, at sea level, you never get them ripe. You never get tomatoes ripe. There are very few crops that would actually get ripe out there. So we're looking for high elevation sites closer to the ocean that are above the fog line. So they're in a little bit of a banana belt, warmer climate where they get more sunlight because that fog intrusion burns off quicker, or it's a little higher above the fog. But it's very temperate. So the daytime temperatures tend to be really cool in the 70s and sometimes lower 80s. But then the nighttime temperatures are a little bit warmer because you don't get the same frost effect that you do inland. So it's a really, it is a challenging growing area. And to your question about yields, it's right on the edge of being able to get grapes ripe there. So you can't expect the vineyard to produce 5 or 6 tons an acre. You're lucky to get 1 or 2 tons an acre. Yeah. That's the thing that in Sonoma County that can be difficult to explain. If you were to plant a vineyard in Rutherford or Oakville, you could reasonably expect to get 5 or 6 tons an acre of Cabernet Sauvignon and charge upwards of $10,000 a ton, making it pretty profitable. When you're farming vineyards out on the coast where you have to net them because you've got bird situations, you're limited due to yield and the varietals that you plant out there, it's a much more difficult financial equation as a vineyard owner and farmer. And it's hard to pass that through to the consumer.
Right.
Yeah, consumers are very happy to spend, well, maybe not happy, but they certainly willing to spend $150 a bottle for Cabernet. No one's spending $150 a bottle for Pinot Noir from Sonoma County.
This is something I've always found out fascinating about winemakers. I'd asked you how many vintage you have under your belt.
Yeah, so I started almost 40 years in the wine industry. My parents were grape growers, so I worked summers planting their vineyard back in the late 80s. But in terms of vintages back to back, I think I'm 34 4 vintages this year.
That's a lot of vintages.
It's a few vintages.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah. Oh,
Good for you.
thanks. Yeah, it's one, as a winemaker, it's a long, flat learning curve. In a lifetime, maybe you get 40. Some people maybe get 50 vintages. Imagine if you produced a product, if you were a baker, and you only had 50 batches that you could do in a lifetime, what your learning curve would be like. So, we do experimentation every year as we're making wine, but it's a long, flat journey.
Mike, for our listeners here at the tasting room, which is a beautiful tasting room, very, very homey, and again, a beautiful piece of property here. Is this by appointment? Can people just come on by? How's it work?
Yeah, so we're open by appointment, 7 days a week, usually between 10 and 4. But the tasting experience is it's led by one of our sales associates. And they'll talk about the history of the project. They'll talk about what's happening in the vineyard right now. We'll taste the wines. They'll tell you a little bit of story about how they're made. So it's really, especially for customers that are just coming into California or just getting into wine, come on out to Wine Country. You'll really get a feeling of, what goes into this magical product and why it's special and unique.
I agree. And just in the middle of your saying that, maybe our audience will pick up the laughter going on outside, which is part of the whole fun tasting
Absolutely.
experience. And for our listeners who'd like to learn about you online, what is your website?
BenoviaWinery.com. And we certainly have sales portals through that site for purchasing any of the wines that are currently available. We've got some videos on there to explain the process, and a little bit about the vineyards and the history of the winery.
Great, and people should definitely come here to visit because this is fun. This is fun to be here. Mike, good seeing you again. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Good seeing you.